I invited my girlfriend's just a friend to a cabin trip. She completely forgot me and openly flirted with him in front of everyone. I drove home that night, packed her things, and refused to take her back. I'm Nate, 29 years old. I work as an insurance underwriter for a regional firm here in Ohio. It's not the kind of job people write movies about, but it pays well and I'm good at it. I spend most of my days reviewing risk assessments and crunching numbers from my home office. Quiet work for a quiet guy, and I mean that as a compliment to myself. I've got my own apartment, a truck that's paid off, and zero drama in my daily life. Or at least I used to have zero drama. My apartment's nothing fancy. 2-bedroom in a decent part of town, second floor with a balcony that overlooks a row of oak trees. I keep it clean. Furniture that actually matches because I spent real time picking it out instead of grabbing whatever was on clearance at the first store I walked into. Kitchen stocked because I actually cook. Got into it a few years back when I realized eating takeout 5 nights a week was draining my bank account faster than any bill. Now I can throw together a solid meal from whatever's in the fridge without checking a recipe. I met Brooke at a local book club about 3.5 years ago. The kind of book club where people sit around sipping coffee and arguing about whether the detective in Chapter 9 was actually the villain the whole time. Classic small-town stuff. Brooke was always the sharpest one in the room. She'd light up when she was picking apart a character's motivations. Eyes going wide, hands moving while she talked, completely locked in. Me, I'm more of a sit-back-and-listen type. I'd nurse my coffee and take in the conversation. Maybe drop a comment here and there when I had something worth saying. You actually think before you talk, she told me after our third meeting, standing in the parking lot while everyone else filtered out. That's weirdly refreshing. I asked if she wanted to grab dinner sometime. She said yes before I finished the sentence. The early days were easy. She told me my steady presence grounded her, that I kept her from getting lost in her own whirlwind of ideas. We had this rhythm weeknight dinners at my place where she'd talk about her day and I'd actually listen. Weekend trips to farmers markets and used bookstores. Long drives out to the countryside with no destination in mind. She'd leave little notes in my apartment on the bathroom mirror tucked into my work bag, stuck to the coffee maker. Stupid little messages like, "You make me feel safe," and "Don't forget you're my favorite person." I kept every single one in a drawer by my bed, threw them all away the night I came back from the cabin. But for a long time, those notes felt like proof that what we had was real. Brooke worked as an event coordinator for a hospitality company downtown. Her days were non-stop. Venue walkthroughs, vendor meetings, last-minute client meltdowns, and networking events that kept her out late at least twice a week. I never minded. Trust came easy at the start. She'd text me updates from whatever corporate function she was working, and I'd remind her to eat something if she'd been running around since morning. Being the supportive partner felt natural. I didn't want to be the guy who clips her wings. Her parents loved me from day one. Her dad, Frank, a retired school principal, would clap me on the back at family barbecues and say things like, "You're the anchor she needs, Nate. Don't ever let her forget that." Former military before he went into education. And he ran his household the same way he ran his school. Fair, direct, and no tolerance for excuses. He'd pull me aside during holiday dinners and ask real questions about my career plans, my finances, whether I was thinking long-term, not in a threatening way, more like a man who'd seen enough of the world to know that good guys are harder to find than people think. He respected that I had my own place, my own career, and that I didn't need anyone else's money to stand on my own 2 feet. Her mom, Helen, was softer but just as observant. She'd watch the way I interacted with Brooke at family gatherings and smile like she was mentally checking boxes. She once told me over the phone that I was the first boyfriend Brooke had brought home who didn't make her nervous. The others were always chasing something. Helen said, "You've already found it." That matters more than people realize. They'd both say that Brooke had a habit of chasing excitement, that she'd get restless when things got too comfortable. Her dad would joke about it, but there was always a layer of real concern underneath. He'd say it like a warning disguised as a compliment. "She's lucky to have someone steady like you. Just don't let her wander too far." I filed that away and forgot about it. That was my mistake. Then Garrett resurfaced about 8 months before the cabin trip. Brooke's old college study partner popped back into the picture. His name was Garrett. They dated briefly during sophomore year before deciding they were better as friends. Started with a LinkedIn message about some job opportunity. She mentioned it over dinner one night, scrolling through his profile and laughing about how different he looked. "He's not the lazy guy I remember," she said, showing me his headshot. "Some consultant type with a sharp jawline and a bio full of buzzwords about synergy and brand elevation." I nodded and moved on. Old connections resurface all the time. No big deal. Except Garrett became a recurring character in our life real quick. She'd forward me memes he sent, or bring up stories from their college days during our evening walks. Then it became more frequent. Garrett's name started popping up in conversations that had nothing to do with him. We'd be watching a movie and she'd say it reminded her of a film she and Garrett watched in college. It was like she couldn't go 30 minutes without routing a thought through him first. I brought it up once casually. "You've been mentioning Garrett a lot lately. Everything good there?" She rolled her eyes. "We're just friends, Nate. Don't be that guy." That guy. 2 words designed to make you shut up and stop trusting your own instincts, because no man wants to be that guy, the insecure one, the controlling one. So you back off. You file the concern away, and you let the thing that's eating at you keep eating, because being cool about it feels more important than being honest about it. But things kept shifting. Our conversations got shorter. She'd snap if I asked about her day. Hugs turned into quick pecks on the cheek. Movie nights felt like an obligation. She was checking off a list. She started keeping her phone face down on the table during dinner. She'd step out of the room to reply to messages and come back without explaining who it was. I told myself it was stress from a big venue opening she'd been coordinating. To compensate, I'd surprise her with homemade dinners or tickets to shows she wanted to see. I bought her flowers on a random Tuesday, made her favorite pasta from scratch one night when she came home looking wiped. Her response to all of it lukewarm at best, a quick that's sweet before going back to her phone. A half-hearted thank you for the flowers that she forgot to put in water until they were wilting on the counter 2 days later. The lake cabin tradition. Every summer, our friend group rented this cabin up by the lake for a long weekend. 6 couples, sometimes a few singles, hiking during the day and bonfires at night. Good people, good food, no cell service worth mentioning. This year, Brooke suggested inviting Garrett. He's single now and he knows a few people in the group, she said casually while we were packing. Real casual. The kind of casual that's rehearsed. Don't overthink it, Nate. Garrett's just a friend catching up. It'll be fine. I felt the knot in my stomach but pushed it down, loaded up the truck and headed out. We pulled up to the cabin Friday afternoon. Pine trees, lake water, crisp air that smelled like you were breathing for the first time all week. Everyone was in good spirits, setting up cornhole boards and stocking the fridge. My buddy Reese helped me unload the coolers while his wife Megan got the grill situation figured out. Felt like every other year at first. Comfortable, easy. Garrett showed up about an hour late, rolling in with a cooler and that easygoing grin that certain guys have. The kind of grin that says nothing in the world has ever truly bothered me, and I've never had to work for anything that matters. He hugged Brooke. Hello, lingered a beat too long, his hand on her lower back as they pulled apart. Maybe I was reading into it. Maybe I wasn't. I introduced myself, shook his hand firmly. Good to finally meet you properly, I said. He nodded. Likewise, man. Brooks told me a lot about you. Funny how that sentence can mean completely different things depending on the context. The first evening went smooth enough. We grilled burgers, shared stories around the fire pit, played cards under the string lights someone had strung between the trees. Brooke was in her element, animated and magnetic, drawing everybody in with her stories. I sat beside her with my arm around her shoulders, feeling content despite the low hum of something I couldn't quite name. Garrett fit right in, cracking jokes and winning people over. He was charming. I'll give him that. Some guys just know how to work a room without it looking like they're trying. Saturday was when things shifted. We hiked in the morning and hit the water in the afternoon. Brooke and I paired off for a trail walk holding hands while we navigated rocky paths. For a stretch, it felt like old times. She teased me about my thing with bugs, and I made her laugh doing a terrible impression of a squirrel we'd spotted on a branch. For about 90 minutes, I forgot about Garrett entirely. She was present. We were us. And then we got back to the cabin and she wasn't anymore. During lunch on the deck, Brooke sat next to Garrett instead of me. Didn't even hesitate. Just walked right past the empty chair beside me and took the spot next to him like it was assigned seating. Their knees brushed as they swapped college stories and inside jokes nobody else at the table had any context for. You were always the bold one, he said, and she giggled and touched his arm like they were the only 2 people at the table. It wasn't subtle. Megan noticed. Reese noticed. I noticed them noticing, which somehow made it worse. I busied myself with cleanup duty, chatting with Reese about his new gig, keeping my hands moving and my face neutral. But inside, something sour was settling in my chest. Not jealousy exactly, more like recognition. The slow, creeping recognition that something was off and had been for a while. That afternoon, while most of the group napped or read on the porch, Brooke and Garrett took the kayaks out, just the 2 of them. Nobody else was invited. They came back, flushed and grinning, clothes damp from splashing each other like a couple of college freshmen on spring break. You should have come out, she told me later, but her tone was the verbal equivalent of a shrug. Like she was saying it because she was supposed to, not because she meant it. I kept my mouth shut, told myself I was being paranoid. That steady guys don't make scenes over kayak rides. That's the trap, by the way. The steady guy trap. You rationalize everything because losing your composure feels like losing yourself. So you swallow it until someone pours gasoline on the pile and strikes a match. Saturday evening, the bonfire. This is where it all went sideways. The group gathered around the fire pit as the sun dropped behind the tree line. Flames crackled. Somebody brought out a guitar for sing-alongs. The vibe was mellow and conversations flowed the way they do when people are relaxed and away from their real lives for a few days. Brooke was a couple of sodas deep and louder than usual, her laughter carrying across the clearing louder than anyone else's. Garrett sat across from us at first, but within 20 minutes he'd migrated to the log right beside her. Better acoustics near the guitar, he said. Sure thing, Garrett. They started whispering, heads bent together looking at something on her phone. I watched from my spot, holding my drink, saying nothing. Reese's wife Megan shot me a look from across the fire, the kind of look that says, I see what you're seeing, and I'm sorry. But she didn't say anything. Nobody did, because that's what groups do when something uncomfortable is happening in plain sight. They pretend the fire is really interesting and hope someone else handles it. Then, as the fire burned lower and conversations got quieter, Brooke leaned into Garrett, full lean shoulder pressed against his, her head tilting toward him like gravity was pulling her in that direction, and she had zero interest in fighting. She whispered something that made him chuckle low and private, and his hand landed on her knee, not a brush, not an accident. He rested it there, comfortable, familiar, like it had been there before. I locked eyes with her across the flickering shadows. It's just harmless fun, she murmured, loud enough for me and about 6 other people to hear over the dying embers. Lighten up, Nate. Let me tell you something about those 5 words. They didn't land like an insult. They landed like a diagnosis. Like she just told me everything I needed to know about how she saw me, how she saw us, and how little she thought the last 3 years actually meant. Lighten up, Nate. As if being bothered by your girlfriend draped over her ex in front of all your friends is some kind of personality defect that needs correcting. The group went dead silent. Eyes darted everywhere except at me. Reese cleared his throat and tried to pivot the conversation towards s'mores, but the mood was completely trashed. Brooke didn't pull back from Garrett. If anything, she settled deeper into her position beside him and shared another inside joke that left them both snickering like the rest of us weren't even there, like I wasn't even there. My chest tightened, but 3 years of being the calm one had taught me that blowing up only makes you the villain, especially when everyone's watching. Outbursts feed the fire. They give people a reason to say you were the problem all along. And I wasn't about to hand Brooke that excuse on a platter. So I stood up, brushed off my jeans. I'm going to turn in early. Long drive tomorrow. Brooke frowned. Already? Come on, stay. But her eyes were on Garrett when she said it. Not on me. Walked to the cabin alone. Night air cool against my skin. Inside, I grabbed my duffel and started packing. Methodical clothes, toiletries, phone charger. No rush, no slamming drawers, no dramatic exit speech. I could hear the group's voices drifting from the bonfire through the open window, but I tuned them out the way you tune out a song you've heard too many times. By the time I slipped into my truck and turned the key, the bonfire was a distant orange glow in the rearview mirror. I drove the 2 hours home in silence, windows down, letting the night air do what it does. My phone buzzed before I even hit the main highway. Brooke, where are you? Brooke, this is ridiculous. Brooke, it was nothing. We were just joking around. I didn't respond to any of them, just drove. 2 hours of empty highway and dark tree lines, and the kind of silence that forces you to be honest with yourself. By the time I pulled into my parking spot, I knew I wasn't going back. Not to the cabin, not to her. Okay, so first of all, lighten up, Nate. In front of the entire friend group while she's draped over her ex-boyfriend at a bonfire. That's not a comment. That's a declaration. She basically told everyone at that fire pit that Nate's feelings don't matter and that he should be fine watching his girlfriend cuddle up to another guy. The disrespect is unreal, and Nate didn't blow up, didn't cause a scene. He just packed his bag and left quietly. That is ice-cold composure. And honestly, it's the move that hit the hardest. She was clearly expecting a fight, and she got silence instead. Now the community went absolutely nuts over this post. Everybody wanted to know what happened after, and Nate delivered. Let's keep going. Update 1 posted 1 week later. Update. It was just harmless fun, my girlfriend said. Here's what happened after I left the cabin. A lot of you wanted an update, so here it is. Quick recap for the new people. Girlfriend of 3 years got too comfortable with her college ex at our friend group's cabin weekend. Told me to lighten up in front of everyone. I packed up and drove home at night. Now here's everything since the morning after. I stripped the sheets off the bed because her scent was everywhere. Crashed on the couch. By morning, something had settled inside me. Resolve. I moved through the apartment with purpose. Gathered her things. Books from the nightstand. Clothes from the bottom drawer she'd claimed that mug she drank from every morning. The hair ties she left on every surface. Boxed them neatly and set them by the front door. Changed the Wi-Fi password and updated my streaming login. Small moves, but clear ones. Her messages piled up through the morning. Brooke, everyone's asking what happened. You're making me look bad. Brooke, Garrett means absolutely zero to me. It was just the vibe of the night talking. Her best friend Kayla texted too. Hey, she's freaking out. What went down last night? I replied to Kayla with one line. Ask her about the harmless fun. Brooke's calls started rolling in around noon. I let every single one go to voicemail. One said, Nate, please pick up. We can laugh about this later. Another said, you're overreacting. Come back or at least talk to me. Instead of sitting around stewing, I hit the gym, pounded the treadmill until my legs burned and my head was empty. Then hit the weights, then hit the treadmill again. Worked out for close to 2 hours. Went home, showered, made myself a solid lunch, grilled chicken and rice and vegetables, and sat in my quiet apartment eating it without anyone telling me I was being too sensitive. For the first time in months, I wasn't performing calm. I was actually calm. Friends from the trip reached out that afternoon. Reese texted, dude, that was rough last night. You good? Megan sent. She crossed a line, Nate. I'm sorry you had to deal with that in front of everyone. By evening, Brooke was back in the city, standing outside my apartment, pounding on the door. Open up, Nate. This isn't funny. I stayed inside working on a case file. She left after about 20 minutes. The spin cycle. Next day, her texts shifted tone. Suddenly, it wasn't about what she'd done. It was about what I'd done. Brooke, I miss you already. Let's fix this. Brooke, you embarrassed me in front of everyone by leaving like that. The woman who leaned into her ex in front of our entire friend group and told me to lighten up was embarrassed because I left quietly. The mental gymnastics required to land on that conclusion could win Olympic gold. Her parents called that afternoon. Helen's voice was soft and careful. Nate, honey. Brooke said there was a mix-up at the lake. You two okay? I paused, then said it evenly. No mix-up, Helen. I just don't appreciate being disrespected. Silence on the line then. Oh well. I told her to be careful with old friends. Frank followed up with his own call an hour later. Son, if she hurt you, I'm sorry. You're family to us. His voice was steady, but there was frustration underneath it. Not at me, at her. At the pattern he'd been watching his daughter repeat since she was old enough to get restless. I thanked him and hung up. Her own parents weren't surprised. They weren't scrambling to defend her. They'd seen this movie before, and they knew how it ended. The friend group fallout. A week later, Megan filled me in over lunch at our usual diner. Garrett ghosted Brooke completely after the trip, blocked her number, told mutual acquaintances he didn't want drama and that it was never serious on his end. She torched a 3-year relationship for a guy who didn't even think enough of her to pick up the phone one more time. The friend group was split, but not evenly. Most sided with me, especially the ones at the bonfire. A few tried the diplomatic both sides approach. Megan shut that down quick. He didn't overreact, she told one of the fence sitters. He just reacted. There's a difference. Reese told me he'd pulled Brooke aside the morning after I left and told her what she did was disrespectful. Her response, she cried and said I was too rigid and that she felt suffocated by how serious I always was. Suffocated by the guy who cooked for her, showed up for her family, and never once gave her a reason to question my loyalty. The word echoed around my head for a few days before I let it go. Because you can't argue with someone who's rewriting history to make themselves the victim. You just walk away and let reality do the work. Brooke's social media became a highlight reel of cryptic suffering, quotes about growth and misunderstandings, photos of her alone with captions like learning to stand strong. Mutual acquaintances started messaging me asking what happened. Brooke's version was that I got jealous over nothing and stormed off. I corrected a few of them with the same simple line. She got cozy with her ex in front of everyone. I chose to leave quietly. No embellishments, just the facts. And the facts did all the heavy lifting on their own. He didn't overreact. He just reacted. There's a difference. Megan, dropping that line to the fence-sitters is exactly what needed to be said. And the fact that Garrett ghosted Brooke immediately after the trip blocked her told people it was never serious. That's the part that stings the most if you're Brooke. She humiliated a guy who'd been cooking her dinner and showing up for her family for 3 years. And the dude she did it for didn't even think she was worth a text goodbye. Meanwhile, Nate's just going to the gym, eating his meals and letting the silence speak for itself. The community was fully locked in at this point. Everybody wanted the final chapter and Nate came back with it. Let's finish this. Final update posted 4 months after original final update. She said she'd forget me. 4 months later, she got fired, lost her friends, and moved back in with her parents while I got promoted and rebuilt everything. Last one, Reddit. A lot of you have been asking, so here's the ending. If you're new, go read the other posts first. Short version. Girlfriend of 3 years got cozy with her college ex at our cabin trip. Told me to lighten up in front of everyone. I left. Garrett ghosted her. Friend group split. Now here's what happened after the desperation stage. Her messages escalated over the next few weeks. Each one a different angle, like she was testing every door to see which one would open. Brooke, I've been doing so much self-reflection. I see my mistakes now. You'd be proud. Brooke, we were so great together. Don't throw away 3 years over one bad night. Brooke, can we please meet? Just coffee. I'll explain everything. I left them all unread because I knew exactly what would happen if I sat across from her in some coffee shop. She'd cry. She'd make promises. And for about 30 seconds, the part of me that spent 3 years being her anchor would reach for the rope out of habit. Then I'd be right back where I started. One night she showed up at my apartment unannounced, red-rimmed eyes visible through the peephole. She knocked, then pounded. Nate, open up. I messed up. Okay, I know that I was feeling neglected, and that's not an excuse, but just let me explain. Neglected, the word hit different. I'd been there every single step. Every event she was stressed about, every family dinner, every morning coffee, every bad day she needed to vent through. And she felt neglected. No, she didn't feel neglected. She felt bored. Bored of the guy who showed up consistently because consistency doesn't give you butterflies. It gives you stability. And some people can't tell the difference between being safe and being stuck. Go home, Brooke, I called through the door. She pounded once more, then left. I heard the sobbing echo down the stairwell, and I'm not going to lie and say it didn't sting. 3 years with someone doesn't evaporate overnight, but pain and principle aren't the same thing. And I'd chosen principle. What Nate did. Next first week after the breakup, I landed a promotion. My boss told me I'd been one of the most reliable underwriters on the team, and that the senior role was long overdue. Came with a bump in pay, and the option to work fully remote 3 days a week. Used the first bonus check to upgrade my apartment. New couch, new kitchen setup, rearranged the whole layout so nothing was where it used to be when Brooke was around. Hung shelves I'd been meaning to put up for a year. Reconnected with buddies I drifted from during the relationship. Reese and I started a Sunday morning fishing routine at the reservoir. We'd be out there by 6 a.m. with our rods and a thermos of coffee, barely talking for the first hour because that's how fishing works, and that's how good friendships work too. Megan's husband Dan pulled me into his fantasy football league. A few guys from work roped me into their softball team. I hadn't swung a bat since college rec leagues, but figured why not. Hit a triple my second game and the whole dugout went nuts. Those guys became a whole new circle. Clean slate. Started working on my truck too. New brake pads, upgraded the sound system, detailed the interior until it looked showroom clean. Ordered a tonneau cover I'd been eyeing for months but never pulled the trigger on because Brooke always had opinions about how I spent my weekends. Funny how much gets done when nobody's hovering over your shoulder suggesting you do something else. Booked a solo trip to Hocking Hills. Spent 3 days out there with no agenda and no cell service. Just me, a backpack, a tent, and the kind of silence that actually recharges you. Cooked my own food over a camp stove. Watched the sun come up over Old Man's Cave without another person in sight. Drove home Sunday night feeling like I'd hit some kind of internal reset button I didn't know existed. The final text about 4 months after the cabin. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Hey, it's Brooke. New phone. Can we talk? I saw you and Megan's post from the fishing trip. Looking good. Missed that smile. I replied, what's there to say? Her response came fast. Closure. I've lost so much, Nate. The group barely invites me to anything anymore. Garrett blocked me after spreading rumors that I was clingy. Work's been impossible because I can't focus. So the guy she chose didn't just leave. He trashed her name on the way out. You were always so patient with me, she continued. I took it for granted. Coffee just once. No, I typed. I've moved on. She pushed. You don't miss us at all after 3 years. I did once. Peace is better, though. Silence for days, then a voice note. Played the first 3 seconds, heard her voice cracking, deleted it, and went back to watching the game where everybody ended up. Megan gave me the full update at our next lunch. Brooke had moved back in with her parents, quit her job at the hospitality company, told people the stress was too much. But Megan said the real story was that she'd been showing up late, missing deadlines, and her boss gave her the option to resign or get fired. She took the resignation. Family dinners at Frank and Helen's house had become a nightmare for her. Helen had developed this habit of bringing up the lake incident every single time Brooke complained about anything. Brooke would say she was having a rough week, and Helen would hit her with something like, well, you had a good man, and you leaned into someone else right in front of him and all your friends. Frank had gone dead quiet around her. Wouldn't engage, wouldn't argue, just sat at the head of the table and ate his food in silence, which if you knew, Frank was 10 times worse than any lecture. Helen told Megan that Frank still had my number saved in his phone. Said he'd mentioned more than once that I was the one who got away, not from Brooke, from their family. Helen actually called me a few weeks later and invited me to their Thanksgiving dinner. Said I was welcome regardless of the situation with Brooke. I thanked her but declined. Clean breaks need to stay clean. The friend group moved on without Brooke entirely. The group chat she used to dominate went silent on her end. People just started making plans without looping her in. Our next cabin trip got booked for the following summer. 6 couples signed up within a week. Brooke wasn't on the invite list and nobody brought it up. Garrett was long gone. Back to whatever city he blew in from. Megan heard through someone's cousin that he'd pulled the exact same move at a wedding in Michigan a few months later. Different girl, different boyfriend, same playbook. The guy was basically a traveling circus of other people's relationship problems. Kayla, Brooke's best friend, reached out to me about 5 months after everything went down. Said Brooke had become exhausting to be around. Every conversation looped back to the lake, to me, to what she lost. She doesn't want advice, Kayla told me. She wants you back, and she wants everyone around her to make that happen. Kayla said she'd started pulling back too. Even her best friend was running out of patience. Last thing I heard, maybe 7 months after the cabin, Brooke had moved out of her parents' place and relocated to Columbus. Fresh start. New job in retail management, which was a steep step down from coordinating events at a hospitality company. Her social media went quiet. No more cryptic quotes. No more lonely selfies with deep captions. Just silence. Kayla told me that Brooke tried reaching out to Garrett one last time before she moved. Sent him a long message about how he'd ruined her life and owed her an apology. Garrett responded with a single line. I think you're confusing me with the guy you were actually dating. Then blocked her on everything. Even the guy she blew everything up for could see it clearer than she could. Meanwhile, Frank texted me on my birthday. Just a simple happy birthday, son. Hope you're doing well. The truck running, okay? I texted back a thank you and told him the truck was running better than ever. He sent back a thumbs up. Some relationships survive the wreckage, even when the main one doesn't. Frank was good people. Always was. Reese and I fished every Sunday that summer. The softball team made the league playoffs. I finished a home renovation project I'd been putting off for 2 years. Tore out the old bathroom tile and laid new flooring myself over a long weekend. Work kept handing me bigger accounts. I was sleeping 8 hours a night and waking up without that knot in my stomach that I'd gotten so used to I forgot it wasn't normal. Last weekend, the friend group did a cookout at Reese and Megan's place. 12 people, a grill going full blast, kids running around the backyard. Megan pulled me aside and said, "You look good, Nate. Like, actually good. Not the fake good you were doing for the last year of that relationship." I just nodded and grabbed another plate of food because she was right. And the best part was I didn't need to explain it or prove it or convince anyone. The results were just sitting there, obvious in every single part of my life that I'd rebuilt from the ground up since that night. I drove away from the cabin without looking back.